The winter wind rattled the windows of Sweet Haven Bakery as Nora Bennett wiped down the last table. Her hands moved in familiar patterns, the same movements she had made every night for the past 2 years since taking over her grandmother's old bakery. The clock above the door showed 7:30 on Christmas Eve. The streets of Ashford were already empty. Everyone had somewhere to be tonight. Everyone except her. Nora pushed a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear and surveyed her small kingdom. The bakery was modest with its worn wooden floors and mismatched chairs, but it was hers. The display case that once held dozens of pastries now contained just 3 unsold gingerbread cookies and a lonely slice of pumpkin pie. Business had been slow this month. Actually, business had been slow every month since the new shopping center opened on the highway, pulling customers away from downtown Ashford. She was about to flip the open sign to closed when she heard it. A knock. Sharp, urgent, almost desperate. Nora hesitated. She should pretend she didn't hear it. She should go home to her tiny apartment above the bakery and spend Christmas Eve the way she had spent the last 3 Christmases alone with old movies and hot chocolate. But something made her walk to the door instead. The man standing outside looked completely out of place in Ashford. His black wool coat probably cost more than her monthly rent, and even through the frosted glass, she could see the exhaustion etched into his face. Snow gathered on his dark hair and shoulders. He knocked again, and this time she could see his breath coming out in desperate clouds. Nora unlocked the door and pulled it open. Cold air rushed in along with the man. He practically stumbled inside, his expensive leather shoes sliding on the wet floor. Up close, she could see he was younger than she first thought, maybe early 30s, with striking gray eyes that held something she recognized too well. Loneliness. "Thank you," he said, his voice shaking, teeth chattering. "I know you were closing. I saw the lights and I just needed somewhere warm." Nora locked the door behind him and gestured to the nearest table. "Sit down before you fall down. Let me get you something hot." She didn't wait for his response. In the kitchen, she prepared chamomile tea and grabbed the last slice of pumpkin pie. When she returned, the man had removed his coat and was rubbing his hands together, trying to restore feeling. She set the tea and pie in front of him and sat down across the table. "I'm Nora," she said simply. He looked up, surprised by the kindness in her voice. Dominic Wells. "Thank you for this. I'll pay, of course." Nora waved her hand dismissively. "It's Christmas Eve. Consider it a gift." She studied him quietly. "You're not from Ashford." "Boston," he replied, wrapping his hands around the warm cup. "I was supposed to be at a business dinner in Burlington. The snowstorm hit worse than predicted and my car died about 2 miles back. My phone battery is dead. I've been walking for almost an hour." Nora glanced at the window where snow was now falling in thick sheets. The storm had arrived faster than anyone expected. The whole town would be buried by morning. "You're lucky you found this place. Everything else on this street closed hours ago." Dominic took a sip of tea and seemed to come back to life. "This is good. Really good." He noticed the empty display case, the quiet stillness of the bakery. "You were here alone?" "Always," Nora said without thinking, then caught herself. "I mean, I own the place. Just me. No staff to worry about on holidays." There was something in the way she said it that made Dominic look at her more carefully. She was pretty in an understated way, with warm brown eyes and a gentle smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, and there was flour on her left sleeve that she hadn't noticed. "What about you?" Nora asked, turning the attention away from herself. "No family waiting for you on Christmas Eve?" Dominic's jaw tightened. "I have family. A mother in California, a brother in Seattle. But we don't really do holidays together anymore. Not since my father died 5 years ago." Everyone just drifted apart. Tonight was supposed to be about business, not family. Nora nodded slowly. She understood that kind of distance. My parents moved to Florida 3 years ago. They asked me to come, but I couldn't leave the bakery. And my grandmother, she passed 2 years ago. This was her place. I promised her I'd keep it running. Promises to the dead are the hardest to keep, Dominic said quietly. And Nora felt something shift in her chest. This stranger understood. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the storm rage outside. Dominic finished his pie and smiled for the first time. This is incredible. You made this? Every morning at 5, Nora replied. Gran's recipe. Dominic looked out at the snow, now falling so thick the streetlights were barely visible. I don't think I'm making it to Burlington tonight. I don't think you're making it 2 blocks tonight, Nora said. The storm is only getting worse. She stood up, making a decision that surprised even herself. There's a couch upstairs. In my apartment. It's small, but it's warm and you won't freeze to death. Dominic looked at her with those gray eyes, searching for something. You don't know me. I could be anyone. You could be, Nora agreed. But it's Christmas Eve, and no one should be alone in a storm. She didn't say what she was really thinking. That maybe she was the one who didn't want to be alone tonight. Dominic stood slowly, grabbing his coat. Thank you, Nora. I promise I'm not a serial killer or anything. That's exactly what a serial killer would say, Nora replied with a small smile. As they climbed the narrow stairs to her apartment, the lights in the bakery flickered once, then went dark. The storm had cut the power. In the sudden darkness, Nora felt Dominic's hand find hers, steadying, warm. I've got candles upstairs, she said softly. Lots of them. But as they reached the top of the stairs and she pushed open the door to her apartment, Nora's phone buzzed with a text that made her blood run cold. It was from her lawyer. Emergency. The bank moved up the foreclosure. You have 30 days to pay $50,000 or Sweet Haven is gone. I'm sorry, Nora. Call me after the holidays. Her hand went numb. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. Dominic picked it up, and in the glow of the screen, he saw the message before she could stop him. Nora, he said quietly. What's going on? Nora snatched the phone from Dominic's hand, her cheeks burning despite the cold darkness of her apartment. It's nothing. Just business. $50,000 in 30 days doesn't sound like nothing, Dominic said carefully. She moved past him, fumbling for the candles she kept on the kitchen counter. Her hands shook as she struck a match. The flame caught, casting dancing shadows across the small space. It's my problem, Nora said, lighting 3 more candles. Not yours. Dominic stood in the doorway, his expensive coat still draped over his arm. In the candlelight, his face looked different. Softer somehow. More real. How long have you known? He asked. 3 months. The words came out bitter. The bank sent letters. I kept thinking I could fix it. Get more customers. Cut costs. Something. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Turns out hope doesn't pay mortgages. She walked to the small couch and sat down hard, suddenly exhausted. My grandmother took out a loan to expand the bakery 5 years ago. She got sick before she could pay it back. When she died, it became my debt. I've been drowning ever since. Dominic set his coat on a chair and sat across from her. The candlelight caught the gray in his eyes, turning them silver. Why didn't your parents help? They don't know, Nora said quietly. They think everything is fine. They sold their house to retire in Florida. They finally have peace after working themselves half to death. I can't ask them to sacrifice that for a failing bakery. So you're sacrificing yourself instead. The words hit harder than she expected. Nora looked away, focusing on the tiny Christmas tree in the corner. Her grandmother's ornaments glittered in the candlelight. Someone has to keep the promise, she whispered. Silence stretched between them. Outside, the wind howled, and the old building creaked under the weight of the storm. Then Dominic spoke, and his voice carried something that made Nora's heart skip. What if I gave you the money? She looked at him like he'd lost his mind. What? $50,000. I could write you a check right now. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I have it. It's not even a significant amount for me. Nora stood up fast, anger flashing in her eyes. I'm not a charity case. I didn't say you were. Then what are you saying? That you just hand $50,000 to a stranger because you feel sorry for her? No, Dominic said, standing to face her. I'm saying I'd invest in someone who clearly cares about something more than money. That's rare. Trust me. You don't know me, Nora shot back. You walked through my door 2 hours ago. And in those 2 hours, I've seen more genuine kindness than I've experienced in 2 years, Dominic replied, his voice rising. Do you know what my life looks like, Nora? Boardrooms full of people who smile to my face and stab me in the back. Business dinners where everyone wants something. A family that fell apart because we were too busy building empires to remember how to love each other. He ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration radiating from him. You opened your door to a stranger in a storm. You gave me food and warmth and didn't ask for anything in return. You're fighting to keep a promise to someone who's gone because honor still means something to you. He stepped closer. So yes, maybe I don't know you. But I know enough. Nora's breath caught. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. What would you want in return? She asked quietly. Because nobody gives away $50,000 for nothing. Dominic's expression shifted. Something flickered behind his eyes. Calculation. Decision. Spend Christmas with me, he said. What? Not just tonight. The whole holiday. 3 days. His voice grew urgent. I have a business deal. A massive one. The client, Richard Hartley, he's old school. Traditional. He only works with people who have stable personal lives. Family values. All that. Nora's stomach tightened. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? My fiancé, Dominic corrected. The deal is worth $20 million, Nora. I need Hartley to believe I'm not just some workaholic with no personal life. I need him to see stability. Commitment. So you'd pay me $50,000 to lie for 3 days. I'd invest $50,000 in your bakery in exchange for your help with a business situation, Dominic said carefully. It's mutually beneficial. Nora laughed, sharp and disbelieving. This is insane. Is it? Dominic moved closer, close enough that she could smell the expensive cologne mixed with snow. You need money to save your grandmother's legacy. I need someone genuine and real to help me close this deal. We help each other. And what happens after 3 days? Nora asked. We just go our separate ways? Pretend this never happened? Yes, Dominic said simply. Clean break. No complications. But even as he said it, something in his eyes suggested he didn't believe it either. Nora turned away, walking to the window. Snow covered everything, transforming Ashford into a winter painting. Beautiful and isolating. $50,000. Sweet haven saved. Her grandmother's dream preserved. All for 3 days of playing pretend. There has to be a catch, she said. No catch. Just acting. We'll meet Hartley and his family tomorrow night for Christmas dinner. Play the part. Be convincing. That's all. That's all, Nora repeated hollowly. She thought about the empty bakery downstairs. The display cases that grew more bare every week. The loan payment notices that kept coming. She thought about her grandmother's hands, worn and scarred from decades of baking, teaching Nora to fold dough and shape dreams. Why me? Nora asked, still facing the window. You could hire an actress. Someone who knows how to lie professionally. Because you're real, Dominic said softly. Hartley would see through an actress in minutes. But you? You're exactly what he'd expect. Genuine. Kind. The kind of woman who'd make a man want to be better. Nora closed her eyes. This was wrong. Every instinct screamed it was wrong. But sometimes survival demanded compromise. She turned to face him, candlelight painting half her face in shadow. 50,000. Transferred to my account before we leave tomorrow. Done. And after 3 days, you walk away. No contact. No strings. Agreed. Nora took a breath that felt like stepping off a cliff. Then I'll do it. Dominic's relief was visible. He extended his hand, businesslike and formal. Thank you, Nora. She took his hand. His grip was warm, firm, and sent electricity through her skin that she absolutely did not want to acknowledge. One more thing, she said, not letting go. If this is going to work, I need to know the truth. Why is this deal so important to you? $20 million can't be everything. Dominic's expression shuddered. He pulled his hand back. It's not about the money, he said quietly. My father started this company. Built it from nothing. When he died, I took over, but I've been bleeding clients ever since. This deal would stabilize everything. Prove I'm not just living off his legacy. His jaw clenched. Prove I'm worthy of what he left me. The pain in his voice was raw, real, and Nora felt her heart crack just a little. Okay, she whispered. Then we'll make this work. Dominic nodded, then moved toward the couch. I should let you sleep. Tomorrow is going to be complicated. But as Nora turned to get him blankets, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and froze. It was a number she didn't recognize, but the voicemail that followed made her blood turn to ice. She listened, and with each word, her face drained of color. Nora? Dominic asked, concern threading his voice. What's wrong? She looked at him, and her voice shook. That was Richard Hartley's assistant. They're confirming dinner tomorrow night at 7 p.m. She swallowed hard. Dominic, who exactly is Richard Hartley? He's a real estate developer. Why? Because, Nora said, her world tilting sideways, Richard Hartley is the man who bought the building that houses my bakery. He's the one who's been raising my rent for 2 years, pushing me toward foreclosure. The silence that followed was deafening. Dominic's face went white. Nora, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. But the damage was done. The man who was supposed to save her bakery was working with the man trying to destroy it. And she just agreed to lie for both of them. The dress Dominic bought hung in Nora's closet like an accusation. Deep emerald silk that cost more than 3 months of her rent. She stared at it, her reflection pale in the mirror. 24 hours ago, she'd opened her door to a stranger. Now she was about to have dinner with the man who was destroying her life. You don't have to do this, Dominic said from the doorway. He wore a charcoal suit that made him look every inch the millionaire he was. I'll call it off. Find another way. Nora turned to face him. They'd barely spoken since the revelation last night. The apartment had felt too small, the air too thick with betrayal. You didn't know, she said. It wasn't a question. I swear I didn't. Dominic stepped into the room. "Hartley owns dozens of properties. I had no idea yours was one of them. But you knew he was pushing out small businesses. You had to know that's how he operates." Dominic's silence was answer enough. Nora laughed bitterly. "So I'm going to smile and play fiancé to the man you're helping get richer while he takes everything from me. That's the plan?" "The 50,000 still stands," Dominic said quietly. "You can save Sweet Haven." "Can I?" Nora moved closer, anger making her bold. "Or will Hartley just raise my rent again in 6 months? Force me out anyway? Your money might save me today, but it won't stop him from coming back." "Then I'll make it part of the deal," Dominic said, his voice hardening with decision. "I'll negotiate a clause. Long-term lease protection for all current tenants in his downtown properties. Fixed rent for 10 years. Nora's breath caught. "He'll never agree to that." "He will if he wants my technology." Dominic's gray eyes burned with intensity. "My software could save his company millions. He needs me as much as I need him." He stepped closer. "I can protect you, Nora. But you have to trust me." "Trust." The word hung between them like smoke. "I don't trust you," Nora said softly. "I don't even know you." "Then know this," Dominic said, and his voice cracked just slightly. "My father spent his whole life building something real. When he died, I watched vultures circle, trying to tear it apart. I've spent 5 years fighting to honor what he built." He reached out, stopping just short of touching her face. "I understand what it means to make promises to the dead. And I won't let Hartley destroy your grandmother's legacy. Not if I can stop it." The raw honesty in his voice broke something in Nora's chest. "Why do you care?" she whispered. "Because," Dominic said, his hand finally touching her cheek, gentle and devastating, "you remind me that some people still fight for things that matter. And I forgot what that looked like." Nora closed her eyes against the warmth of his touch. This was dangerous. All of it. The lies they were about to tell. The way her heart raced when he looked at her. The fact that in less than 2 days, this stranger had become someone she couldn't stop thinking about. "We should go," she said, pulling back. "Before I change my mind." 40 minutes later, they stood outside the Hartley estate. Mansion didn't do it justice. The house sprawled across a hillside, all glass and stone and old money. Christmas lights twinkled in the trees, expensive and tasteful. Dominic took her hand as they walked up the stone steps. His palm was warm against hers. "Remember," he said quietly. "We've been together for 8 months. Met at a charity gala. You charmed me with your passion for baking. I proposed 3 weeks ago. And I said yes because you're secretly romantic beneath all that business armor," Nora added, trying to inject lightness she didn't feel. "Exactly." He squeezed her hand. "Just follow my lead." The door opened before they could knock. A woman in her 60s stood there, elegant in pearls and cashmere. Her smile was warm but her eyes were calculating. "Dominic Wells. Right on time." She extended a hand. "Margaret Hartley. And you must be the infamous Nora." "Infamous?" Nora asked, shaking her hand. "My husband has been curious about the woman who finally captured Dominic's heart," Margaret said, her gaze sweeping over Nora with professional assessment. "He says Dominic has been a confirmed bachelor for years." "Well," Nora said, channeling confidence she didn't possess, "some men just need the right motivation to change." Margaret's smile sharpened. "Indeed. Come in. Richard is in the dining room." The house was exactly what Nora expected. Expensive art on the walls. Furniture that cost more than cars. The kind of wealth that whispered rather than shouted. And in the center of the massive dining room sat Richard Hartley. Nora recognized him immediately. She'd seen him once, 2 years ago, when he'd come to inspect the building. He'd walked through Sweet Haven like he was calculating its worth per square foot. He'd smiled at her grandmother's framed photo on the wall and said, "Nostalgia is expensive in real estate." Now he stood as they entered, a man in his late 60s with silver hair and a shark smile. "Dominic. Good to see you." He shook Dominic's hand, then turned to Nora. "And this must be the baker." The way he said baker made it sound like a curiosity rather than a profession. "Nora Bennett," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you for having us, Mr. Hartley." His handshake was firm, possessive. "Call me Richard." Any woman who can make Dominic here settle down must be extraordinary. They sat down to dinner. 7 courses of food Nora couldn't taste. She smiled and laughed at the right moments. Answered questions about how they met. Described their fake relationship with details that felt too real. And all the while, Richard Hartley watched her like a man studying a chessboard. "So, Nora," he said during the 4th course, "Dominic tells me you own a bakery in Ashford. Sweet Haven, is it?" Her heart stopped. Dominic's hand found hers under the table, squeezing tight. "Yes," she said carefully. "It was my grandmother's. I took over when she passed." "Ashford." Richard swirled his wine. "I own several properties there. Downtown area. Good investment potential once we clear out the old businesses." "Clear out?" "Like they were trash to be disposed of." "Those old businesses have history," Nora said, keeping her voice level. "They built that town." "History doesn't pay bills," Richard replied. "Progress requires sacrifice. I'm sure you understand that, running a small business in today's market." It was a test. She could feel it. "I understand that some things are worth fighting for," Nora said, meeting his eyes. "My grandmother spent 40 years building something real. Something that mattered to people. That has value too." Richard smiled. Spoken like someone who's never had to make hard business decisions. "I make them every day," Nora replied. "I just choose not to destroy people's lives while doing it." The table went silent. Margaret's eyes widened. Dominic's hand tightened on hers, whether in warning or support, she couldn't tell. Then Richard laughed. Actually laughed. "She's got fire, Dominic. I like that." He leaned back in his chair. "Most people are too afraid to speak truth to power." Refreshing. The tension eased, but Nora's heart still hammered. She'd just insulted the man who held her future in his hands. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. Business talk. Dominic pitching his software. Richard asking pointed questions. And through it all, Nora played her part, the devoted fiancée who believed in her man. But when dessert arrived, Richard dropped the bomb. "I've decided to move forward with your software, Dominic," he said. 20 million, as discussed. My lawyers will have contracts ready after the holidays." Dominic's relief was palpable. "Thank you, Richard. You won't regret this." "I'm sure I won't." Richard turned to Nora. "And as a wedding gift, I'd like to offer you something, my dear." Nora's blood ran cold. "I'm buying the building that houses Sweet Haven," Richard continued, his smile sharp. "Already in escrow, actually. Should close in 2 weeks." "You're already the landlord," Nora said, confused. "I'm buying it outright," Richard clarified. "From the current owner. And once I do, I'm planning significant renovations. The whole block, actually. Going to demolish the old structures, build something modern." The world tilted. "Demolish? Progress, my dear. Can't be stopped." He sipped his wine. "But because you're going to be family, I'll give you first option to relocate. I'm building a new shopping center on the highway. Perfect for a bakery." modern kitchen. High-foot traffic. It was poison wrapped in kindness. He was offering her a cage in exchange for her home. That's very generous, Dominic said, his voice tight. Think about it, Richard said. You have 2 weeks before the sale finalizes. After that, well, the building comes down regardless. Nora stood abruptly. Excuse me. I need some air. She walked out before anyone could stop her. Through the house, past the expensive art and the Christmas tree that probably cost more than her yearly income. Out onto the balcony where snow fell soft and quiet. She was going to lose everything. Not in 30 days. In 2 weeks. The door opened behind her. Dominic's footsteps approached. Don't, she said, her voice breaking. Don't tell me it's going to be okay. I can still negotiate, Dominic said. The lease protection clause. Nora laughed, sharp and broken. He's demolishing the building, Dominic. There's nothing to protect. Then I'll buy it, Dominic said desperately. I'll outbid him. Keep the building standing. With what money? You just committed $20 million to a business deal that requires his approval. If you cross him now, you lose everything your father built. The truth hung between them, heavy and final. I'm sorry, Dominic whispered. God, Nora, I'm so sorry. She turned to face him. Is this what your world looks like? Making deals while people's lives burn? It's not like that. Isn't it? Tears froze on her cheeks. You get your $20 million. I lose my grandmother's dream. Everyone wins except the people who can't afford to play. Nora. Take me home, she said. This is over. But as they turned to leave, Margaret Hartley appeared in the doorway. Her expression was strange. Almost sad. Nora, dear. A word? Dominic started to protest, but Margaret's look stopped him. Alone, please. Nora followed her inside to a small study. Margaret closed the door and turned, and the warmth in her eyes had vanished. How long have you known my husband is dying? The question hit like a physical blow. What? Richard, Margaret said quietly. He has 6 months. Maybe less. Terminal cancer. She walked to the window. He's spending his last days acquiring properties, building monuments to himself. He thinks legacy is measured in square footage. Nora's mind reeled. I didn't know. No one does. He won't tell anyone. Margaret's voice cracked. Not even our daughter. She turned back to Nora. But I saw how you looked at that building. The way you talked about your grandmother. You love something he's trying to destroy. Why are you telling me this? Margaret pulled an envelope from her desk drawer. Because I'm tired of watching him hurt people in his race against death. She handed Nora the envelope. This is the sale contract for your building. It hasn't been signed yet. It won't be signed. Nora's hands shook as she opened it. I don't understand. I'm the majority stakeholder in Richard's company, Margaret said. He forgets that sometimes. The building purchase requires my signature. Her smile was sad. It won't get it. But he said. He assumed I'd approve it. I won't. Margaret's voice hardened. Your bakery is safe, Nora. The building stays standing. Relief crashed over Nora like a wave, but it was followed immediately by guilt. Your husband will be furious. But he'll get over it. Or he won't. Either way, some things matter more than his ego. Margaret touched Nora's hand. Your grandmother built something real. Don't let men like Richard take that from you. Nora's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Margaret said. Because there's something else you need to know. She paused. Dominic's business deal? It's not what you think. What do you mean? Richard isn't buying his software, Margaret said quietly. He's buying Dominic's company. The whole thing. For $20 million, Dominic agreed to sell everything his father built. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. No. He said it was just a deal. It's an acquisition, Margaret said. Dominic is walking away from his father's legacy for money. She met Nora's eyes. He lied to you. And in that moment, everything shattered. Nora found Dominic in the foyer, his coat already on, ready to leave. When he saw her face, he froze. What happened? She walked past him, out the door, down the stone steps. She made it halfway to his car before he caught up. Nora, talk to me. She spun to face him. Snow fell between them, soft and deadly. You're selling your father's company. The color drained from Dominic's face. Margaret told me, Nora continued, her voice shaking with fury. $20 million to walk away from everything he built. That's the deal, isn't it? It's complicated. It's a yes or no question, Dominic. His jaw clenched. Yes. I'm selling. The admission hit harder than she expected. You lied to me. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. Nora's voice cracked. You stood in my apartment and talked about honoring your father's legacy. About proving you were worthy. And all of it was a lie. It wasn't a lie, Dominic said desperately. I do want to honor him. That's exactly why I'm selling. How does that make any sense? Because I'm failing. The words burst from him, raw and broken. Every quarter, we lose more clients. Every year, the company slides closer to collapse. My father built something incredible, and I'm watching it die because I'm not him. I'll never be him. Nora stared at him, and for a moment, she saw past the anger to the pain beneath. So you're running, she said quietly. Just like your family ran after he died. Dominic flinched like she'd slapped him. I'm saving what I can, he said. Hartley will keep the company alive. The employees get to keep their jobs. The technology my father developed will continue. That's worth more than my pride. Is it? Nora stepped closer. Or are you just afraid of trying and failing? Easier to sell and walk away than fight for what matters. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Nora said. I've spent 2 years drowning in debt, watching my grandmother's dream slip away. Every day I've wanted to quit. Sell out. Take the easy path. But I didn't. You know why? Why? Because she believed in me. She trusted me with something precious, and I refused to let fear make that meaningless. Tears streamed down Nora's face. Your father believed in you too, Dominic. And you're throwing that away for money. It's not about the money, Dominic said, his voice breaking. It's about not being enough. It's about looking in the mirror every day and seeing someone who can't measure up. Do you know what that feels like? To carry something you love and watch it crumble in your hands? Yes, Nora whispered. I know exactly what that feels like. They stood in the falling snow, two broken people holding on to things that were slipping away. I thought you understood, Dominic said softly. I thought you of all people would understand why I have to do this. I understand why you think you have to, Nora replied. But I also know that giving up isn't the same as letting go. She wiped her eyes. You can save your company, Dominic. It's not too late. How? With what money? What miracle solution do you think I haven't already tried? Fight for it, Nora said simply. The way I'm fighting for Sweet Haven. The way your father would have fought. My father would have made the smart business decision. Your father would have found another way. Nora's voice hardened. But you're right. I don't know him. I only know you. And the man I met yesterday, the one who talked about honoring legacies and keeping promises, that man wouldn't sell his soul to Richard Hartley. Then maybe you don't know me at all. The words hung in the cold air between them. Maybe I don't, Nora agreed. But I know this deal makes you a coward. And I know your father deserved better. Dominic's face went hard. Don't talk about my father. You didn't know him. I know he raised a son who's too afraid to try. The slap of the words hit harder than any physical blow. Dominic's hands clenched into fists, but his voice went quiet. Dangerously quiet. You want to know the truth? The real truth? He stepped closer, anger and pain warring in his eyes. I brought you here because I needed you to play a part. That's all. A convenient prop to close a deal. I didn't expect you to matter. Now it was Nora's turn to feel the knife twist. But you did, Dominic continued, his voice raw. Somehow in 2 days you made me question everything. Made me want to be better. And I hate you for it. Because wanting something doesn't make it possible. Believing doesn't make it real. Then why did you promise to protect my bakery? Nora demanded. Why negotiate the lease clause if none of it mattered? Because I'm selfish, Dominic said. Because for one moment, I wanted to be the man you thought I was. The hero who saves the day. But I'm not that man, Nora. I never was. You're right, Nora said, and her voice went cold. You're not. A hero would fight. You're just a rich man buying his way out of hard choices. She turned and started walking. Away from him. Away from the Hartley mansion. Into the snow and darkness. Nora, wait. You can't walk home in this storm. Watch me. Nora, please. He caught her arm, gentle but desperate. I'm sorry. God, I'm sorry for all of it. For lying. For dragging you into this. For not being who you needed me to be. She pulled free. You're not sorry you lied. You're sorry you got caught. That's not fair. Fair? Nora laughed bitterly. Nothing about this is fair. You used me to close your deal. I used you to save my bakery. We're both liars, Dominic. The difference is, I was lying to Richard Hartley. You were lying to yourself. She started walking again, and this time he didn't follow. Nora made it 3 blocks before the cold became too much. Her thin coat wasn't enough against the storm, and her legs shook with exhaustion and emotion. She pulled out her phone to call a cab, but the battery was dead. Of course it was. She stood under a streetlight, snow gathering on her shoulders, trying to figure out what to do next. Her apartment was 5 miles away. The temperature was dropping fast. Footsteps crunched in the snow behind her. I'm taking you home, Dominic said. You can hate me. You can never speak to me again. But I'm not leaving you alone in a storm. Nora turned to argue, but the look on his face stopped her. He wasn't asking. He wasn't negotiating. He was breaking. Please, he said quietly. Let me do one thing right. The drive back was silent except for the sound of tires on snow. Dominic kept his eyes on the road. Nora kept her face turned to the window. When they reached her apartment, she got out without a word. But as she climbed the stairs, she heard him follow. I told you I can get inside myself, she said. I know. But I need to say something first. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was cold, dark. Empty. Dominic stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the hallway light. You were right, he said. About all of it. I am afraid. I am running. And selling the company is the coward's way out. He took a breath. But I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to be brave when I've spent 5 years failing. Nora didn't turn around. Then learn. Or don't. But stop expecting me to fix you. I'm not asking you to fix me, Dominic said. I'm asking you to believe that maybe I can fix myself. Why should I? Because you opened your door to a stranger in a storm, Dominic said softly. Because you fight for things that matter even when it's hopeless. Because somewhere in the past 2 days, you made me remember what it feels like to want something real. Nora finally turned to face him. What do you want, Dominic? I want to cancel the deal, he said. I want to tell Hartley no. I want to save my father's company the right way, even if it takes years. Even if I fail. He stepped into the apartment. But mostly, I want to stop lying to you. And to myself. You'd give up $20 million? I'd give up everything, Dominic said, and the truth in his voice made her heart crack, to be the man you see when you look at me. Nora felt tears sting her eyes. You can't make that decision because of me. I'm not, Dominic said. I'm making it because of him. My father. Because you're right. He deserved better than a son who quit. He pulled out his phone and dialed before Nora could stop him. Richard? Dominic Wells. I need to talk to you about our deal. Don't, Nora whispered, but he held up a hand. I'm calling it off, Dominic said into the phone. All of it. The company isn't for sale. Even from across the room, Nora could hear Hartley's angry response. Dominic's face remained calm. I understand that. Yes, I know what this means. No, I'm not reconsidering. He listened for another moment. I appreciate the opportunity, but my answer is final. Goodbye, Richard. He ended the call and looked at Nora. It's done. You just walked away from $20 million. No, Dominic said. I just walked away from the easy way out. There's a difference. Nora didn't know if she wanted to hit him or kiss him. You're insane. Probably, Dominic agreed. But for the first time in 5 years, I feel like I can breathe. They stood in the darkness of her apartment, and the silence between them shifted. Became something electric. Dangerous. What happens now? Nora asked quietly. I don't know, Dominic admitted. I go back to Boston. Try to save my company. Probably fail spectacularly. And us? There is no us, remember? This was supposed to be 3 days. No complications. Clean break. Right, Nora said. That was the deal. But neither of them moved. Except, Dominic said slowly, I don't want a clean break. Nora's breath caught. Dominic. I know. This is crazy. We barely know each other. This was all supposed to be fake. He moved closer. But somewhere between the storm and the lies and the dinner from hell, something real happened. At least for me. For me too, Nora whispered. The admission hung between them, fragile and terrifying. Dominic reached out, his hand cupping her face. So what do we do about it? Before Nora could answer, her phone buzzed. She'd plugged it in when they entered, and now it lit up with a message. From Margaret Hartley. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Richard just called his lawyers. He's accelerating everything. Your building sale closes tomorrow morning. Demolition starts New Year's Day. He's making sure I can't stop it. I tried. Forgive me. Nora's world collapsed. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Dominic read the message over her shoulder. His face went white. He's doing this because I canceled the deal, he said, horror in his voice. This is revenge. 12 hours, Nora said numbly. I have 12 hours before I lose everything. And this time, there was no miracle coming to save her. Nora sat on the floor of her apartment, back against the couch, phone clutched in her hands. Outside, dawn was breaking. Christmas morning. The day everything ended. Dominic paced the small space like a caged animal. He'd been making calls for hours. Lawyers. Business contacts. Anyone who might have leverage against Richard Hartley. Nothing. Every door was closed. There has to be something, he said for the 100th time. Some legal angle. Some way to delay. Stop, Nora said quietly. I can offer him money. More money. Whatever he wants. Dominic, stop. I'll go to his house right now. I'll reinstate the deal. Sell him everything. Just to save your building. No. The word came out sharp, final. Nora stood, facing him. Don't you dare. Why not? This is my fault. I cancelled the deal. He's punishing you because of me. He's punishing me because he's a cruel man who's dying and wants to take something beautiful with him, Nora said. Her voice was steady despite the tears on her face. That's not on you. But I can fix it. By destroying everything your father built? By betraying yourself again? She shook her head. No. I won't let you do that. Then what? Dominic's voice broke. I just watch you lose everything. Watch him tear down your grandmother's legacy. Nora walked to the window. Below, Sweet Haven sat dark and quiet. Her grandmother's dream. Her promise. Her whole world contained in worn wooden floors and the smell of cinnamon and yeast. She closed her eyes and made a decision that felt like dying. I'm walking away, she said. What? I'm letting him demolish it. Nora turned to face Dominic. I'm not fighting anymore. You can't mean that. I do. And the certainty in her voice surprised even herself. My grandmother didn't give me that bakery so I could spend my life drowning in debt and desperation. She gave it to me so I could have something to build on. Something to grow from. But you promised her. I promised to keep her dream alive, Nora said. Not to die defending a building. She moved closer to him. You taught me that. Last night, when you walked away from Hartley's money. You chose the harder path because it was the right one. Not because it was easy. That's different. It's exactly the same. Nora took his hands. Sweet Haven isn't the bakery. It's what the bakery represents. Love. Family. Legacy. I can build that anywhere. The building is just wood and brick. But your memories will come with me, Nora said firmly. My grandmother lives here. She touched her heart. Not in that building. And maybe it's time I learned that. Dominic pulled her close, and she let herself break against his chest. Let the tears come. Let the grief pour out. I'm so sorry, he whispered into her hair. I know. So am I. They stood together as the sun rose fully over Ashford, painting the snow gold and pink. Outside, church bells rang. Somewhere, families were opening presents. Drinking cocoa. Celebrating. And Nora was letting go. What will you do? Dominic asked after a long silence. I don't know yet, Nora admitted. Find a new space, maybe. Start smaller. Or maybe something completely different. I have time to figure it out. And us? The question hung heavy between them. Us. Such a small word for something so complicated. I don't know that either, Nora said honestly. She pulled back to look at him. 3 days ago, you were a stranger. Now you're someone who makes me want things I didn't think were possible. Like what? Like not being alone, Nora whispered. Like building something with someone instead of just surviving by myself. Like maybe taking a risk on something that terrifies me. Dominic's gray eyes held hers. I terrify you? Completely. Because I barely know you, and somehow you've become someone I can't imagine not knowing. I feel the same way, Dominic said. Which is insane. This was supposed to be business. 3 days and done. But it wasn't, Nora said. It was real. At least the important parts were real. So what do we do? Before Nora could answer, someone knocked on the door. Hard. Urgent. Dominic opened it to find Margaret Hartley standing there, her hair wet from snow, her face desperate. I need to speak with both of you, she said. Right now. They let her in. Margaret didn't sit. She paced, agitated, before finally stopping to face them. Richard is at the hospital, she said. He collapsed an hour ago. The doctors say it's accelerating faster than they thought. He has weeks. Maybe days. I'm sorry, Nora said, and meant it. Don't be. Not yet. Margaret's voice hardened. Because before the ambulance came, he told me something. About the building. Dominic tensed. What about it? He lied. Margaret's hands shook. The sale isn't going through. It never was. He doesn't have the funds. He spent everything acquiring other properties. He was bluffing, hoping you'd panic and accept his relocation offer. The words took a moment to register. What? Nora breathed. Your building is safe, Margaret said. The foreclosure from the bank is still an issue, but Richard can't demolish it. He doesn't own it. Can't buy it. The whole thing was a manipulation. Relief crashed over Nora so hard her knees buckled. Dominic caught her. But why? Nora asked. Why lie like that? Margaret's face crumpled. Because he saw how much you loved it. And he wanted to take that from you. To prove that love doesn't matter against money and power. She wiped her eyes. But he was wrong. I'm making him be wrong. She pulled out a checkbook and wrote quickly. When she handed it to Nora, the amount made her gasp. $50,000. This isn't charity, Margaret said firmly. It's payment. For reminding me what matters. For standing up to my husband when no one else would. For loving something more than you fear losing it. I can't accept this, Nora said. You can. You will. Margaret's voice softened. I built my own business once. Before I married Richard. Before I let his ambition swallow mine. Your grandmother knew what I've forgotten. That some things can't be measured in profit margins. She moved to the door, then paused. Dominic, Richard told me about your company. About the struggles. She looked back. I may not be able to give you 20 million, but I have contacts. Investors who care about more than quarterly returns. If you're serious about saving what your father built, I can make introductions. Why would you help me? Dominic asked. I walked away from your husband's deal. Because you did it for the right reasons, Margaret said simply. And because I'm tired of watching good people lose to men like Richard. Consider it my last act of rebellion. Her smile was sad. I'll have my assistant contact you next week. If you want the help. I do, Dominic said. Thank you. Margaret nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. Nora stared at the check in her hands. $50,000. Sweet haven saved. Her grandmother's legacy preserved. She started laughing. Couldn't stop. It was too much. Too absurd. Too impossible. Dominic laughed too, and then they were both laughing and crying and holding each other in the middle of her tiny apartment while snow fell outside and church bells rang, and somewhere in a hospital, a dying man learned that he couldn't destroy everything he touched. When the laughter finally faded, Nora looked up at Dominic. "I still don't know what happens next," she said. "Neither do I," Dominic admitted. "I have a company to save. You have a bakery to run. I live in Boston. You live here. That's a lot of obstacles." "It is. So maybe we're crazy for even considering this." "Probably," Dominic agreed. His hand found her face, thumb brushing away tears. "But I've spent 5 years playing it safe. Making smart decisions. Avoiding risks. And it almost cost me everything that matters." "What changed?" "You," he said simply. "You opened your door to a stranger in a storm and reminded me what bravery looks like. Not business deals or quarterly reports. Just choosing to care when it would be easier not to." Nora's heart hammered against her ribs. "I'm scared." "So am I. This might not work." "It might not," Dominic said. "But I'd rather try and fail with you than succeed alone. If you're willing to take the risk." Nora thought about her grandmother. About promises and legacies and what it meant to truly honor someone. Her grandmother hadn't spent 40 years building a bakery. She'd spent 40 years building a life. Teaching Nora that some risks were worth taking. That love was always worth the leap. "Yes," Nora whispered. "I'm willing." Dominic kissed her then, and it tasted like snow and hope and new beginnings. Like everything that had been broken finding a way to heal. Like two people who'd been lost finally finding home. When they finally pulled apart, Dominic smiled. "Merry Christmas, Nora." "Merry Christmas, Dominic." Outside, the sun climbed higher. The storm had passed, leaving the world clean and white and full of possibility. Below, Sweet Haven waited, ready to open its doors to another day. Another batch of bread. Another customer who might need more than just pastry. And upstairs, two people who'd met as strangers 3 days ago stood in the aftermath of chaos and chose each other. Chose to be brave. Chose to believe that sometimes the best promises weren't the ones you made to the dead, but the ones you made to the living. That night, Nora baked cinnamon rolls using her grandmother's recipe. Dominic sat at the kitchen counter, laptop open, making plans to save his father's company the right way. And between the mixing and the typing and the comfortable silence, they built something neither had expected. A future. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. And in the end, that was worth more than any amount of money. More than any building. More than safety or certainty or the illusion of control. It was worth everything. 6 months later, Sweet Haven Bakery reopened after renovations. Same location. New equipment. And a small plaque by the door that read, "In loving memory of Ruth Bennett, who taught us that the best legacies are built with love, one day at a time." Dominic stood beside Nora as they cut the ribbon, his company stabilized, his father's legacy secure. Not because of a deal with Richard Hartley, but because he'd finally learned to ask for help. To build partnerships instead of going it alone. Margaret Hartley attended the reopening. Richard had passed in February, and she'd sold his real estate empire, using the proceeds to start a foundation supporting small businesses. She'd found her own legacy, separate from his shadow. And Nora, standing in the bakery her grandmother built and she'd saved, looked at Dominic and smiled. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For stumbling through my door that night." "Thank you for opening it," Dominic replied. "Because sometimes salvation doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from being brave enough to open your door when someone knocks. From choosing connection over isolation. From understanding that the things worth saving are never just buildings or businesses or legacies written in stone. They're the moments we choose each other. The promises we keep not because we have to, but because love demands we try. And in the end, that's the only thing that truly lasts. The end.